hospital porter's pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order. Welcome to Panwo TV. I am at the Oxford Remoaner rally. Well, the first thing I have to do is simply apologise for the lack of motion imagery in this production. I wasn't originally going to make this particular video. I didn't even know the event I was going to cover was going to happen. I should have guessed something would happen. In fact, it's in the news that there's been Remoaner events all over the country. But this is what I found out. I was on my way to work and I saw this in the morning. It said today, Saturday the 31st of August 2019, 11 AM, Broad Street, anti-coup, be counted. And I just saw it stuck to a lamppost, this rather crude advertisement for the event. And it was about 8 o'clock at that time, and I thought to myself, well, I can't get down for the beginning of it, but I've only had one little job to do, so I thought, by the time I finished, I could possibly get to this and film it. But I didn't have my camera with me, because as I said, I wasn't planning on doing a video. But so I used my phone, and unfortunately, as you'll see, my phone has limited memory, and I eventually ran out of film space on my phone. So what I did instead is I actually took a series of still imageries, and I'll be providing some audio commentary for that. But first of all, I'll just show you the small amount of video footage that I created.
To conduct normal life in our city. The frustration for me as a city council leader is there is so much that needs to be done here in Oxford. We have huge inequalities. We have a desperate need for more funding for our police, for our schools, for our police. So much needs to be done. You can see that the roads are falling apart, literally, in many places. Huge potholes. Local government has had nearly all its funding taken away, and all in the interest of austerity led by the same government. And in the meantime, they are wasting huge amounts of money on an unnecessary process, which will end up causing more damage to our country's economy, not less. It's very interesting standing here seeing the huge range of different views and different people. I see outraged North Oxford somewhere over there, someone there, and someone's banner. We can see that people here from North Oxford right down who've come to join us. Thank you. Thank you for coming and showing your support for our democracy. We will continue to fight for our democracy, and we will make sure that our government understands that we will not take this line down. We will not roll over. We must make sure that we protect our democracy.
That's quite witty. He's a mess. I think that's Buckinghamshire. And so this is Broad Street, Oxford, which is where the rally is taking place, and here's my series of still images. And so I was incognito, as you can guess. I was in my work clothes, which means I did have a yellow vest on, but it didn't have all my slogans on, my Trump slogans and things like that. And I certainly wasn't wearing my MAGA hat. I was just I had my work boots on, work trousers, so I didn't look like them particularly. So I must have stood out slightly among these scruffy hairs and sort of like tie-dyed jackets and other things that they have. I'm being unfair. There was quite a wide variety of people there, you know. And I'm not angry with them, you know. I just think they're fools. But anyway, as you can see, demand real democracy. You can see there. I thought this was a democracy. You see these posts. There's a lot of posters like that, and then a lot of the. I'll concentrate on some of the more, what I think are the more original and witty placards and slogans, although most of them were just quite dull. Now the building you see behind you, that beautiful stone building there, is actually Balliol College, and that is the Oxford College, ironically, where Boris Johnson was a student. as a Balliol man, he was a member of the Bullingdon Club too. And well, I've told you the story about the tortoise and things like that. But I just thought that was very, very ironic that they're outside Boris Johnson's college. No to pro-rogue state. I actually saw several puns on the word pro-rogue and rogue state. That's I suppose it's weird because that was a word that was not on anyone's tongue for a long, long time, and so now it's sort of like a buzzword that everyone's using. You could just said the same for Brexit 5 years ago, and Brexiteer and things like that. Did you see the? I think it was in the last photo. Actually, I forgot to mention it. The umbrella, the EU umbrella. I saw a lot of that actually. Things like that, adaptations on the EU flag, which I'll be showing you more of. Stop the coup! You see, it's coup. That word they keep using again. I'll put a link in the description box to the live stream I did on this subject. It's completely wrong to call this situation a coup d'etat. It is not. A coup d'etat is an extra political and illegal takeover of a country by another government. It means the government is deposed and another one is put in against the normal process. As I explained in the live stream, this situation, the proroguing of Parliament, was done in accordance with the Constitution and the law. I'm sure that the Prime Minister and his government would have been very, very careful. They'd have probably made sure to cross every T and dot every I when it comes to this sort of thing. So whenever you see, oh, it's a coup, oh, coup, you're dealing either with pigeons or you're dealing with people who are using propaganda. See, there's a little baby there on the right-hand side. I thought, oh, poor little kid. I mean, there's a lot of children there. I noticed. Parents have brought their kids along. I wonder what the children think of all this. I mean, I know that when I was a child, my parents they were very much into anti-nuclear war, and they used to take me on marches against the bomb and things like that, and I was very frightened by all that. I suppose this isn't exactly a nuclear war, but it's still, it's for a child. Children feel things more than adults in that sort of way. Now, this picture I think I took by accident. It was like I was just fiddling with my camera and I think I actually clicked the shutter. But it's quite interesting. This lace sun hat you see this lady wearing is kind of, I don't know, it's almost like a kind of left-wing thing to wear that kind of clothing. I mean, you see, like I said, there are all kinds of different people there. I mean, there is a type we're dealing with here. It is a type. It's like middle class, left-wing, usually. They're people of all ages, but they tend to be older, sort of scruffy academic type people, and there's younger studenty type people. But this little sun hat is kind of part of the stereotype, I suppose. I know I'm being a bit unfair and a bit snide and smug by including this section and including this photo. It's just something I noticed. And as you can see in this particular image, this is one of the best photos I took actually. The gender study professor's apron is flying high all over the place, as you'd expect. Funnily enough, I saw a couple of Union Jacks and some sort of Union Jack EU flag combination. Now the umbrella, which I referred to actually in the previous when I was examining the previous photo, is actually not the EU flag I thought it was. It is the blue EU blue, which is kind of bright royal blue, and there's like leaves all over it, and I can't see everything that's written on there, but I can see the word same sky, and I think that's a the on before it, so it's the same sky. I imagine that the other panels read something like we all live under, or like it's kind of like a hippie socialist kind of cachet, I guess. We all live under the same sky, we're all citizens of the world, and these are, there's various cliches like that, and I think it implies that I think, well, I mean, yeah, we're all human, aren't we? I mean, I can understand that all people are human, and we all share the same planet, and all those other little pat phrases. I know they have nasty connotations, but they're literally true. But of course, I think these people generally regard people like me as really not appreciating that, as being the kind of individual who would dehumanize and reject and oppress and be prejudiced against Johnny Foreigner and things like that. I mean, these kinds of people, these Remoaners, they generally have a very dim view of people like us. They regard us as white men, uneducated, working class, bigoted, you know, things like that. So I know, I was just saying earlier, I suppose we Brexiteers have our own kind of caricature of the Remoaner, but the Remoaners have their own caricature of us, and I think the Remoaners are worse. They're more likely to, I think, show prejudice and hostility towards someone who doesn't agree with them. There was a survey actually done where over the EU where Remoaner parents were told how would you feel if your son or daughter dated a Brexiteer, and quite a large proportion of them were very unhappy with it. They asked the same question to Brexiteers who had expressed a strong opinion on Brexit, like myself. How would you feel if your son or daughter dated a Remainer? And the proportion of parents who would be concerned about that and would not want that to happen was much lower, far lower. And you see that pattern repeated everywhere. You see it in the United States with the Trump Hillary thing in the 2016 election. So yeah, I think the statistics from the surveys done appears to indicate that they are the intolerant ones, not us. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, what do we have here? Oh, R.I.P. democracy. Oh, dearie me, it's all dead. You see this, they've put this box, I mean, you can't see from this particular angle, but I did see this placard from the other side, and it's done up to look like a coffin. They've like converted a cardboard box to make it look like a coffin. It's crazy. I mean, there was somebody in outside Downing Street yesterday, the big protest yesterday outside Downing Street, the one Owen Jones was at, I think. And they were digging a mock grave and burying a coffin like that and said British democracy on it. But as I've just said, no, what's happened, what Boris has done is not an attack against democracy. It's a very, very bold and desperate and I think very decisive and good attempt to preserve democracy. That's the point. I think this is where I fundamentally disagree with these people. That's funny, look. Boris Johnson has overstepped the mark. My mum. Oh, right. I didn't see who was holding that. Probably one of the students. Another. At the other side, this is a rather crudely made placard here. No Boris Johnson. Don't shut down Parliament. That's direct and to the point. These placards are actually not very good quality. They're sort of makeshift jury-rigged ones. You see the one behind there is made from a cardboard box with looks like gaffer tape over it. But to be fair, these people have only had a few days to make them, so I suppose they've done quite a good job considering. We have there a couple of stereotypes there: the stereotypical student with the glasses and the academic with the scruffy hair. So again, it fits in with the old cartoon image, I suppose. Oh, great! Oh, that's probably the best one actually. Coup de twat. I mean, again, it's false. It's a misrepresentation of the situation, but at least it shows a little bit of humour. These people are not as dismal as some of these people invariably are. Now, one thing I have to point out is this was a completely non-violent protest. Everyone was peaceful, everyone was calm. Obviously, I didn't walk in there with my MAGA hat and my yellow vest with Brexit Now on it and things like that. If I had done, I probably wouldn't have had any trouble. I mean, these people they were family people. A lot of them had their children with them. There was none of the anger and the violence that occurred at the Trump rally in London, which I attended, if you remember that particular video. So I felt quite calm here. I mean, I felt quite safe. I didn't feel. I mean, they must have realised I wasn't one of them. But they were polite people. I said, excuse me, to move past people, and they said, oh, if I bumped into someone, I said sorry, you know, things like that. So I generally thought there was a good atmosphere at this event. Now, there are actually a couple of flags being shown there. I didn't know what all of them were. The one, I might get a better picture of that later on, actually, but there's a couple of strange flags which I didn't quite recognise. But you see there the No Boris Johnson, don't shut down Parliament sign there in red. Look to the one in the middle at the bottom, revoke. Of course, they are calling for the revoking of Article 50. The funny thing is now you can see they're all facing. There is actually a stage. There's a sound stage where there's speakers. Again, I couldn't see the speakers. I couldn't even hear them very well. They had a loudspeaker, microphone, and amplifier, but they were pretty much inaudible, quite inaudible. I didn't hear much of what they were saying, and they were totally invisible, but through the crowds. If I'd known, I would have probably, if I wasn't working, I'd have probably got there earlier, but I couldn't. But so by the time I was there, it was already going. But you could see there that the people looking towards the speaker. The speaker at the time, I think I recorded some of it, so you can see it on the video section. But there was someone who was the head of the council. So again, big names here. Oxford is Remoaner heartland. A lot of important people. I imagine Mark Linus was there. I imagined Larry Sanders was there. Bernie's brother, yeah, he was there probably. And lots of other people like that. So it's all big names in this particular area, important people in local government and the authorities and business. Here we are, stop the Eton Putsch. That's another quite funny one. Again, the Eton Putsch is an interesting phrase. Now, Eton, of course, is the elite boys' school which Boris went to. A lot of important people have been there. It's you know, it's the sort of place where kids have to wear stiff uniforms and things like that, and they talk very posh, and they get ravaged by older boys, as Neil Sanders said. Now, Putsch refers to the Munich Putsch. Now, this is an event in Germany where Adolf Hitler tried. It was his first attempt to take power by taking over the government of Bavaria in a coup. Now, that was a coup, you see, what Hitler did. He actually marched on the government buildings in Munich and was stopped by, there was a big shootout. Hitler was injured. He ended up in jail. That's where he wrote Mein Kampf. But again, it's a complete misrepresentation of the situation. It's not Eton as such. It's just Boris went to Eton. Okay, he went to Eton. I'm just a poor guy. I feel sorry for anyone who goes to school where you get whacked over, you get whacked with canes, and worse things happen to you at night in your bed from other boys, and some of the teachers as well, no doubt. Oh God, it was awful. I mean, George Orwell went there, and he had a terrible time there. He talks about it in one of his books, how he was beaten because he wet the bed, and he couldn't help wetting the bed because he was disturbed, and oh, it was awful. So it's nothing to do. It's not Eton, and it's not a putsch. So as kind of clever and erudite this particular placard is, especially compared to some of the others, it is logically inaccurate. Now, this is where I was actually moving to one side. I wanted to get around to the other side of the actual demonstration. As I said, there were probably about 400 to 500 people here, basically all the pedestrians, including everyone who was not involved in the rally, were sort of squeezing on the pavement on the far side of Broad Street, looking towards the heart of Oxford. And we were just like shuffling forward in two rows. It was lots, big crowds there, big crowds, and we had to move. I had to move through because I wanted to get to the other side of the actual area. But as you see here, there's more gender study professors' aprons, including some people who've made little hats out of them. And it's amazing. It's interesting actually how the Remoaner cause has actually influenced fashion quite considerably. We have Stop the Boris Dictatorship. UK Parliament not unelected. Johnson is something or other. I don't know. There's an interesting flag at there. You can see a flag on the far side. I don't know what that is, but there's like a gardening spade, a feather, and something else. I think it may be a gardeners association or something. I don't know. There was another flag. You saw a glimpse of it earlier, which I think was the flag of Buckinghamshire. Or High Wycombe. It had the swans. It was interesting there, and you can see we have like a Union Jack. I mean, these people don't. I don't think these people consider themselves anti-British. I think they believe that what they're doing for British is what they're doing for the country is for the best. But they're completely utterly wrong. And you can see the chap in front of me there with the sun hat, which is another kind of a bit of a cliche there. 350 years of Quaker faith in action. Oh my goodness me. So the Quakers are pro-Remain, are they? Oh dear, well that's the last time I'm going to sit in any of their circles and talk and eat tea and biscuits. I have been to a couple of their meetings and I quite enjoyed them. I went to a philosophical discussion about life after death at the Quaker Hall in Oxford, which I think I made a video about. But well, if they can shove it if they're going to do this. I mean, sure they're entitled to express an opinion, but this, you know, this is an anathema. You know, they're actually proposing for the illegal occupation of this country by a foreign power, which is what it is, and I'm ashamed of them. This is another really good photo I took of the event here. You see it all really laid out. This is kind of a pack shot here. You see the Quaker guy, You see the EU hats. You see the gender study professors' aprons flying everywhere. You see that strange flag with the gardening stuff on, and all heads turned, looking worried and fearful. And then there's the Boris dictatorship. You see, look at those faces they got of him scowling like that. He looks like Albert Steptoe. Really, that's kind of like an all-encompassing view of the event. And there's Balliol College in the background, the college where the Prime Minister went to. So, very good photo that is, I think. Now, that is probably the most interesting fashion accessory I saw on the day. And as you can see, it's a bit of a poor quality image, and that's because I think I actually meant to take that photo. I think I was trying to photograph something else, and I clicked the shutter. But that little hat there is kind of new agey, left-wing kind of thing, which is symptomatic or symbolic of the kind of demographic who were at the event. It just I thought that quite amused me. And here, of course, we have the watermelons out in force. There's a big Green Party contingent there. The Green Party is very powerful in Oxford. We've had several councillors, and Caroline Lucas, the leader of the Green Party, who's so infamous at the moment, it actually comes from Oxford. I don't know if she lives here now, but she used to. In fact, her husband used to be a teacher at my school, and he taught me English for about a year. There's a lot of powerful Greens in Oxford as well, and I've made videos about them before. I've mentioned George Monbiot, who has actually moved out of Oxford now, but one guy who still lives here is Mark Linus, and I actually attended a talk by Mark Linus and the Oxford Skeptics in the pub, and I did a little video about it, which I will not include I'll not include a link in the description box, but well, you can find it. Search for yourself. I love it. This guy, he's got the gender study professor's apron wrapped round him, like he's at a football match. He's got like people who go to football matches and they wrap the team colours or the flag around themselves, or the flag of the World Cup. Funnily enough, that guy from the front, he's got this great big hipster beard. It's ironic, that the hipsters have kind of culturally appropriated a lot of the traditional tropes of masculinity, sort of working class masculinity, like the beard, like the work boots, like the lumberjack shirt. It's like I just really cracked me up, that does. Right, and here we have a couple of pretty shots of the far side of the protest. That is the side from the heart of Oxford, where I came around to the other side. You see here all kinds of people milling around, the area where all the gender study professors' aprons are flying. That's where the sound stage is, where the speakers are, who I never saw. The guy on the left there, see the black guy with the haversack, he's got the EU flag kind of tabard on, which is quite funny. And it's an interesting there's a kind of interesting placard here, as you see on the second picture. Off with his head. Did you see that there? Off with his head. That's a bit risque, actually, considering something else that has happened. Now, this is a tweet by someone called Philip Pullman. Philip Pullman is an author who lives in Oxford, and I imagine he was somewhere in that crowd of people. He may be one of the speakers, I don't know. But he tweeted this: "When I hear the name Boris Johnson, for some reason the words rope and nearest lamp post come to mind." Well, that is a threat, I believe, and I know that the police have been called over this issue. It's just like Madonna saying, "I want to blow up the White House," when Trump came to power. I mean, you can't just say things like this. If one of us says things like this about Caroline Lucas, we'd be anathema. We'd be in enormous trouble. We'd probably be arrested. We'd probably be charged. It'd be all over the papers. We'd be called racist and evil Nazis and chicken fuckers from hell and things like that. The same has to apply for the left as it applies to the right. Philip Pullman has always been a bit of a controversial figure. I mean, a contestable figure. First of all, I've got to say, I really enjoy his books. He's written a series of books. He's written several books. I mean, the series called the Dark Materials trilogy are outstanding. They're outstandingly good. They're a story about a parallel universe. It's kind of fantasy story and things like that. And I absolutely adore them. And he's written a couple of spin-off short stories from that as well, which are really, really good. I was absolutely hooked on Philip Pullman. I went through a phase where I just couldn't stop reading his books. And I still think they're great books. I still think he's a great writer. But the man himself is a total twat. He really is. Some of the things he says are extraordinarily ignorant. He's a sort of Dawkinsian atheoskeptic, which is just so... it's just so hackneyed, isn't it? He just repeats the usual talking points. You know, all of us are atheists about this, but we go one god further, and things like that. And his I mean, his book is not. I mean, his books aren't sort of atheist propaganda. His books are very atheist in promoting atheism, but then they're done quite fairly. But some of the things he said are far more blunt and crude and ignorant. He hates C.S. Lewis. He says horrible things about C.S. Lewis. He says his books are really insulting to women. So he's virtue signaling the feminists there. He once very famously wrote that he would like to go to Quarry Church, which is where Lewis is buried. He said, I'd like to dig up his grave and throw stones at his corpse. I mean, so much for rationality, Phil. You know, that's a pretty nasty thing to do. Now, exhuming a body and defiling a corpse is a quite minor offence to taking a living person, especially a head of government, and hanging them from a lamppost, which is definitely what you're suggesting here. Shame on you, Philip Pullman. I hope you get arrested. And here we have another prime example, a close-up of the gender study professor's apron being turned into a hat. I mean, goodness me, this... a nice little blue beret with the stars around it. The stars which represent all those nations, those wonderful, free, independent nations. Oh, it's like flags. Flags are awful things because they tend to be... they have encoded messages of propaganda in them. And the EU flag is one of those. I mean, you just see it, and it's almost like it almost has a subliminal effect on you. You see that you have this kind of image, don't you, in your head? It's like that the pro-EU people have this sort of... it's almost like a kind of kumbaya thing, isn't it? They all sit around holding hands, little German boys with lederhosen, and little French kids with berets carrying baguettes, and little Dutch girls with clogs and little white bonnets. And there's windmills in the background and the Eiffel Tower, and they're all holding hands and smiling, and they're singing all kinds of songs about, oh, we all come together as one, and things, you know, the sort of thing I'm meaning. That's not what I think when I see that flag. When I see that flag, I think of Angela Merkel and her dead eyes. I think of Lord Kinnock and all the other suited bureaucrats sitting around the table in their dark suits, pronouncing laws over their empire, of which the people who live have absolutely no say. This unelected dictatorship, placed in this horrible steel and glass monstrosity, this deliberately looks like the Tower of Babel picture by Bruegel. It's funny that how you could see the same thing and interpret it so differently, but I do. That's how I see it, and the sooner we can tear this thing down and burn it, not this lady's hat, the actual flag itself. The sooner we can tear it down, put them in a pile and burn the bastards, the better, and replace them with the good old Union Jack. Can't wait for that day. Alright, I'm heading off now. There's not a lot to see there actually. I mean, you see there's a big crowd. There's probably about 400 or 500 people there, I reckon. I arrived a bit early. I suppose I arrived a bit too late, I suppose, to really see what was going on, so I'll try and get in the shade a bit. Can you see me better that way? I'll keep recording them. Eventually the memory's going to run out on my phone. I couldn't really hear what the speakers were saying, most of them. I heard someone say they were head of the council, so obviously this is like going to the top in terms of government. Of course, Oxford is a Remoaner heartland. I mean, Brexiteers are a tiny minority here. If this was translated across the whole country, then yeah, we'd have lost hands down. They're just charming now. They're chanting now. I don't want to hear what they're saying, but there's nothing there really very original. I mean, the talking points, you've heard protect democracy, Boris is evil, Boris is nasty, Boris is this, Boris is that. There's nothing that I'd say is particularly original. It's not been said before. It's the usual talking points. Also, that the people, it's the usual type of people. It is the sort of left-wing middle class, which of course is what I've said before, like I said in the live stream, about the divisions across the country that have really been underscored by the Brexit issue. It's not the Brexit issue didn't create these divisions. The Brexit issue simply illustrated them so everyone could see. They've always been there, and they probably will continue after Brexit, regardless of what's happened. I think, obviously, I'm incognito. I'm wearing my yellow vest, but it's not my. It's not the one with all the slogans on it. I've got a hat on, but it's not my MAGA hat. I cut myself off there. Sorry, I don't know how much memory's left on this phone. When the memory runs out, I will simply carry on with what I was talking about before. But anyway, I'm gonna head off now. I mean, it's now Saturday, which means we've got 2 more days. Then on Tuesday, Parliament reopens. I'll probably have to do another video, probably a live stream or something about that, because this is a really crucial time in the history of our country and of the world. And as I said last night to Cosmic Claire on the live stream, it's actually a really great thing. I feel really happy that Britain is the centre of this strike back, this true, genuine 2016-esque strike back against the New World Order.
I'd just like to add another point, a very important one, which I didn't make at the time. I'm not so much angry with these Remoaners as I feel sorry for them, because they're missing out on this. Yes, they've chosen to resist it, which makes them our enemies, but they're also figures of pity, I think, because they've kind of chosen not to be a part of everything I've just talked about and take part in this wonderful process. It's the worst example of being left out of a really good party that I can possibly imagine.
It's wonderful. I feel like it's of all the places in the world I could be born, I happen to be born in the nation which first picked up the banner and ran to the front of the line to engage the enemy. Isn't that amazing? And other countries are simply following suit. The United States, of course, is another, but really the other countries are kind of like following our example really now. And I mean, the effect Brexit will have on the nationalist campaigns in other nations is going to be extraordinary. There's going to be an extraordinary blowback. We're going to see if the nationalist campaigns in France, Italy, etc., so-called populist campaigns, are going to be enormously, their confidence and what they do is going to be enormously boosted by Brexit. So as I said, this cannot. There's no way this can end. Oops, I've got to just rotate it. That's it. Have I got the light on? Yeah. I don't know why it's got the light on. Anyway, I hope you can see me. For some reason, it switched the light on. Yeah, this is really a wonderful time to be alive, to be active, and a wonderful place to be alive, to be active. I think, is there anywhere better I could be right now than Oxford? Is there anywhere where I can be which is better than Oxford? I doubt it. Oxford, yeah, the Illuminati heartland, the principal education centre of the Illuminati in Britain, a country which rebelled against the EU, and at this time now, honestly,
And at this point, my mobile phone ran out of memory for the film. I don't really have a lot to add, except I'm glad I went along to this. I didn't stay there very long, actually. I was only there altogether about 20 minutes, but I got some good images. I got a little bit of good video. I'm sorry it wasn't more extensive. Like I said, I didn't bring my camera with me. I didn't plan it until I saw that particular poster. But, well, it's always good to hear both sides of every story, as I always say, and just check out what the other side are thinking. I mean, this is why I go to the Skeptics in the Pub event. So I hope you did too. I hope you also, and I imagine most people watching this are my fellow Brexiteers, but I hope you also found this particular event very, very interesting. Now stay tuned, because there's going to be a lot coming up this week about Brexit, because Parliament goes back for a few days before the recess, and there's going to be fur flying left, right and centre, and I might well be doing some live streams. So check the channel out for live stream notices and for any other videos I might upload. I'm going to be focusing on the Brexit issue for all this week. Thank you for watching Panwo TV. Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity, Stop the New World Order, and Brexit now, Brexit hard.